Hi, I'm Jackie from Travelling Thread Co. We're so excited you've chosen our kits. Come on, let's get creative. Learning to sew a tote bag is an amazing beginner-friendly project to begin with. We've sent everything you need in your kits, so you'll have your snips and clips, measuring tape, pen, you'll have your thread, and you'll also have pins and a beautiful little hand sewing needle. Once you're prepped and at your machine, thread it up and let's get started. Okay, the first step in creating your tote bag, you'll either have a piece that has a fold down the bottom or it will need to be a seam, and that will just depend on what we've used with our sustainable fabrics, what we've salvaged, or what our stash has, as to whether it will have that seam or not. So on this particular piece, we've needed to cut it with this additional seam. Some of the kits will come where that's folded, and so it's not necessary to sew that particular one. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure I do stitch my bottom seam, and then I'm also going to stitch my side seams. So we'll have it placed with the right sides or the pretty sides of the fabric facing each other so that I'm seeing the wrong side, and we'll head over to our machine once we have done our clips. You can use pins as well if you prefer. We just want to get those raw edges matched, and we want to make sure we do that on both sides and the bottom seam if need be. So this may or may not be necessary depending on the beautiful piece of fabric that you've been sent. On this one, I'm going to need to stitch a 1 centimeter seam along the bottom of my bag. I'm going to make sure I reverse stitch at the start and at the finish of each seam. Okay, so now you either have a 1 centimeter seam or that was already just folded to make the right sides together for your project. We are now going to sew from the very top of our bag down the length of each of the side seams. Every time we start a seam, we want to do a few stitches forward and then a few back, called a reverse stitch or back stitch, and that holds our thread into place. We're going to do a reverse stitch and we're going to sew all the way down each of the 2 side seams. When you do the back stitch, it can help if you're a beginner to use your hand wheel, so you can pull that hand wheel towards yourself and it will make that needle go up and down and continue to move forward. It's as though you're doing it just slower than putting your foot down. So as you get towards the bottom, you can actually use this to go right down towards the edge, and then you can use your reverse function to go back 1, 2, and then forward another, and that can be just a nice, slow and steady way rather than trying to navigate such a fast pace. We're going to repeat that for the other side seam. Trim off any of your loose threads, and once it's all tidied up, you'll have both of your side seams nicely sewn, and if needed, you'll have that beautiful bottom seam also sewn. We're now going to finish the edges so that they don't fray and it keeps a really nice design. So I'm going to switch my machine to a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to then zigzag down along each of the raw edges of the seams that I just sewed. On my machine, that looks like a stitch width at about 3, length at 3, and also switching it from the straight to the zigzag setting. The easiest way to navigate is to make sure your needle is just following the center. So between your seam and your raw edge, you just want to make sure you're sort of lined up with the center, and it is going to do a beautiful zigzag stitch all the way down. I am going to reverse at the start and finish, though it's not absolutely necessary because that will be caught in with a beautiful double fold as well. It's then handy to give those edges a nice trim, but not too close to the zigzag, just enough to neaten it up. It'll be the center of your bag, like on the inside of your bag, so it's not going to be seen by everyone, but it is going to be something that you know that you've tidied all nicely. Do that to both sides. Okay, we've finished all of our seams really nicely. We're now going to focus on the two cutouts at the bottom that become our gusset. We want to pinch those open and make sure those sort of edges go out a little bit in an angle, because we don't want to be catching any fabric we don't want to catch when we're sewing. And we are going to push one seam one direction and the other way, so that it's not a big bulky seam. We want one to go one direction and one the other way. And we're going to actually just finger press that out and find that beautiful seam where it matches up. We're going to run it up to this edge, make sure those raw edges match beautifully. Going to pop a little clip there and just make sure it's all finger pressed out. And we are going to do that on both of the gusset sides and stitch using a 1 centimeter allowance, reverse stitching and reverse. Do that to both of the gussets. When you're at your machine, it's really important to move your width back to a 0 and your setting back to a straight stitch before you start, as we're still on that zigzag stitch. So now I'm on a straight stitch with my width at 0, my length at about a 2 to a 3, and on my straight stitch. I'll reverse, and I'm going to make sure that that center seam was nice and caught and it didn't flip up as I sewed over it. And I reversed at the end there. Use your hand wheel if you want a little bit more control over that as you learn. Okay, we'll snip them off. And that is a beautiful gusset stitched in. Do this to the other side. Once you've sewn your gussets, do the same finished zigzag edge on both of them as you did with the other seams. You now have a fully seamed, edge finished, beautiful tote. We are ready to make the handles. The first step with the strap is to take one of them and press 1 centimeter along the full length of each of the raw edges. So I've gone to my iron and I've gone along and just pressed with my iron really gently 1 centimeter. Then I've turned it around and I've also then pressed down 1 centimeter along the other length of the strap. Then I'll go back over to my iron when I fold them to meet these two beautiful folded edges where we've enclosed those raw edges. And when those are met really nicely down the length, I will also press to have like a really nice long strap. Do this for both straps. I now have my two straps beautifully pressed. We've done our centimeter in down each of the long lengths and then folded it down the center to match those beautiful folded edges. Those are my two straps. What I'm going to do next is edge stitch from the very top here, reversing as I start. We'll reverse at the start and finish of every seam and row of stitching that we make. We're going to reverse, we're calling it edge stitching, and that means I want to go as close to the edge as possible. So as a beginner, that might look like you are stitching about a 1/2 centimeter in, but as close to this beautiful edge where we've enclosed these two as you can, reversing all the way down the length, stitching close to the edge and reversing at the other end. At my machine when I'm edge stitching, I tend to try to find something to line it up with. So if I know my needle's going down the center, I'm sort of lining up this edge of my fabric with this groove that just dips in on my presser foot. Every machine is different, but you will find something to line it up with. Alternatively, you can actually use some washi tape and put a strip of washi tape beside where you can see that that needle is going to catch nicely, and you can follow the edge of your fabric along the washi tape. Let's sew. Remember to take it off of zigzag, as we've been on our zigzag. We want our width at 0, our length at 3, and our straight stitch setting. And to start, especially when we're on like just a small raw edge there, I always like to start a little bit down from that top edge, and I'll position it where I want to go, and I just want to use my hand wheel to do a stitch and then reverse it. And then I'm going to continue to stitch all the way down. Okay, I've done a beautiful edge stitch all the way down that strap, and I'm going to do it to the other one. Same thing again. Okay, I've got two beautiful straps and they are edge stitched just down that one side where we needed to enclose those beautiful edges. We're ready for the next step. We're now going to do a double turned hem around the top of our bag to enclose our straps. We're nearly finished. So we have a notch on the side marked for you, and what you're going to do is fold the top part down for the raw edge to match there. I've just clipped it so that I can show you easily. We're going to maneuver that and sort of finger press around to this other side and do the same thing to the other seam down to that notch that's marked, so that top raw hem. And then we're also just going to sort of finger press that too. Then we're going to do another turn at that notch where we've gone down to. We're going to turn it over again. We're going to work our way around, keeping it nice and even. I will pop this back on there. Okay, keeping it beautifully double turned. Switch him to there. It's that side there. And tucking that under to make sure it's really nice. I'm going to go to my iron and I'm going to now press, making sure that I keep to that same beautiful turned down width so that it's nice and even. I'm going to press around that whole top double turned hem. Once we've pressed it all down, we're going to find the center of the front and the back. I'm going to do that by placing my seams together and finding that center mark. Use a pin for that. And then I will do the same on the back. Seams together. Find that center mark. Okay, so I found the center on my front and back. I'm now going to measure 7 centimeters either side and rule a line down there. So with my measuring tape, I'm marking 7 centimeters on this side and 7 centimeters on my other side. And then I'm just going to draw a line It's nice and easy to just do one without a ruler. And that means that I will know where my straps are going to be placed. I want to do that on this other side as well. Okay, so once I've got my lines marked at that 7 centimeter either side of my center, I'm going to get one of my straps at a time, and working with this side that we have done our edge stitch, that's going to be my sort of center side there. Okay, so I don't want to twist it, I don't want it that way. I want to make sure both of my edges that have been edge stitched center with each other, and I want to make sure that that also means this strap is going to sit nice and flat along the shoulder and not be twisted. So I can position it like that. Then I'm going to put that beautiful edge where the edge stitching is on that marked line. So not with the center of it, we want to put it right beside that marked line. So I'm lifting this, I'm going up to that first fold there, and then I'm popping it back down, and I will put a clip. So I've got my marked line and my strap. I'm going to make sure that's stayed nice and even, and pop my other side, same deal, lift it up and placing it with that line on that edge. Do this to the other side. Okay, so now that I have positioned all of my straps and I have them in place, they're all nice, nothing's caught up, they're going to sit nice and flat on the shoulder. What I'm going to do is actually make it even easier for myself and use the pins to pin on either side of each strap. So I will go to one of the ones that I have pegged down, and I will place a pin on each of the sides. Basically, this just helps not only keep it really steadily in place while we're maneuvering it through the machine, but it also helps so that the edges of the strap don't get caught and lifted as we're stitching around. At our machine, we're going to start somewhere that's not right on a seam, and we're going to do a nice reverse, and we're going to edge stitch all the way around the bag along this bottom edge, all the way around until you get back to where you started. My machine has a free arm attachment, so I can actually take that off. And what I'll be doing is then starting, might just start right there in the center. I'm going to make sure I'm edge stitching, so I've got it lined up once again just with something here on my presser foot, and I'm going to reverse stitch and then edge stitch all the way around until I meet myself back where I've started. I'll show you through these pins. We want to make sure that we don't catch anything, and you'll do that for the rest of the bag. As I come up to it, I'll take the first one and then just slowly over the top, second one. Then I know it's just held beautifully. I'll continue stitching. Okay, I'll trim off any of my loose threads, and you can see where I've met myself back at the start. Okay, so currently our handles are facing down and we've done an edge stitch. We want our handles to be beautiful bag handles facing up. So what we're going to do is exactly that. Face them up, and exactly as you just did the pins for the other one, we are going to pin either side of each strap. Okay, do this for each of the straps on the front and the back. So another little tip would be to make sure that when you pin, you're wanting to be able to, as you're sewing, pull them out easily. So you'll either have your pins pointing directionally up towards where the fabric is going through the machine, or out to the side with the ball head here so that you can pull them out as you sew. Okay, we're now ready to do another edge stitch along the top of the fold. So we've done our bottom one and enclosed our straps. We've now folded our straps up, and we are going to go around in the same way all the way around, reversing at the start and finish. Be sure to use your hand wheel and navigate gently if it does feel like a bulkier fabric over those straps. We're also on this one going to, when we get to our straps, it can be really helpful to do a bit of a reverse at each edge of the strap, just to do that extra reinforcement. Okay, so as I'm coming up to the edge of a strap, I am going to continue to edge stitch, and I'm going to reverse as I go across it, and then keep stitching and reverse. Let me show you. And that is going to help it hold up on either side. You can do this to each strap, it is optional. Okay, trim any of your loose threads. You've done a beautiful edge stitch now along the top. It was optional to do that little bit of a reinforcement, but perfectly fine if you didn't, because we have got the strap down there nicely edge stitched and again at the top, and it's time to turn it through. Okay, it was really fun to sew with this beautiful salvaged offcut. It's like a really beautiful cotton, like a nice woven fabric. We've got our gusset that I've just pushed out with my fingers there. And wow, beautiful tote. See how when we've stitched them really well, they can sit nice and flat on the shoulders. And then they're in really nicely down the bottom. So you've made a gorgeous, beginner-friendly market tote. I can't wait to see what you make next.